Are we good?
Yeah, I just want to make sure there wasn't that terrible echo we get. I don't hear it, so I think we're good.
All right. Thank you, Heather. So I'll call the meeting to order for the HPC.
Yeah, I just want to make sure there wasn't that
Oh,
terrible
yep,
echo we
see,
get.
that's what I'm talking about.
Oops.
Yep,
Sorry about that. Let me go back here.
All right.
Okay,
Try it again.
should be good.
Okay, we're calling this meeting to order. HPC meeting on Friday, April 23rd, 2021. Roll call. And again, I never remember if I'm supposed to do this or if you call the roll, Heather. I will do it. Okay, Les Barber.
Here.
Chris Moen, not here yet, but she will be. Will.
Here.
And Christina.
Here.
Okay, and I'm John Sampin. So we've got a big agenda. We'll not get through everything, I'm sure. We'll do what we can today. But first item is the approval of the minutes. Do we have any adjustments, changes?
The only thing I saw, like on the second page, kind of in the middle where it says, also Sampson and Barber suggested adding the word appropriate or equivalent in the first sentence or second sentence of 15808. I think that's 09. And I didn't go back and pull up like a version before the March 8th one, because when I looked at the March 8th one, it was still section 909.
Yeah, I'm sure that's true.
So,
Mistake.
15809. Make that change.
But it might have been like a few versions ago because they were adding that landscaping
Yeah.
section.
Okay, good job, Will, finding that.
Yeah. He's the best editor there is.
Yeah.
Well, I just thought if somebody
Yeah.
5 years from now reads these
Yeah,
minutes
right.
and they wonder where, I don't see that.
Good.
Okay, so do we need to have a motion to accept the minutes?
I make a motion
So
to
moved.
approve the February 26th minutes.
And I will second. Any discussion? Everybody in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Nobody opposed. Okay, so I'm signing this. All right, so we're excited to introduce our new member of our commission. I have a short biography on you, Christina, that I'm going to read, and then you can highlight anything else that's missed. But Ms. Tracy will take the seat recently left vacant by John Wade and represents the downtown area. Christina and her husband, Zach, are the owners, operators of Juniper Brewing. She has a background in corporate banking, focusing on community development finance. In her current role as Senior Vice President, Equity Investment Manager, she manages a team focusing on Community Reinvestment Act, or CRA, lending and investing in multifamily real estate development, utilizing low-income housing tax credits, historic tax credit, and lending and investment into community development financial institutions. Christina holds a bachelor's from BGSU and an MBA from Case Western. That cover it pretty well?
That's all true.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us. It's a pretty good committee. We're kind of proud of the fact that we finally were able to push through the HPC, the CLG with the City Council, and we look forward to your help as we move forward with this and with the downtown area. We'll definitely want your advice and help with that. So thanks.
No, thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be a part of it. I, having been in the banking world for 15 years, I've always been on the investor side. So I've never been on the opposite side and on the ground level to see, from a municipality perspective, how these things are put together. It's really an exciting time for this group and this commission to come together. I feel grateful for the opportunity.
Great, thank you.
think your credentials will be a real useful, helpful addition.
Boy,
to-
boy,
to us.
right, the financial part. Very-
And we like having some more youth on our committee.
Also that.
Okay, let's go ahead to item number 4. And Heather, do we have any report from the advisory?
We
Mhm.
actually haven't met again, but we did have some draft recommendations from the state that we looked through and provided feedback as a committee. And that's it so far.
Okay, thank you. So Heather will keep us advised to future activities there. We added, I consulted a little bit with Les on organization, and we added some different items in our agenda. These include administrative issues, public engagement, status of the CLG, implementation of CLG, and building inventories. And there potentially could be a lot of items to discuss in each of these categories. So we'll take them in order unless there's a suggestion to move around on that agenda. We okay with that, Les?
Yeah,
I just wanted to
Okay.
make sure you all had a copy of that agreement for certification, because I think that really has to be what a lot of your work has to surround as you get your feet off the ground. Again, I just think it was important because it talks about the annual reporting, the responsibility of building inventories, the surveys, et cetera. So I thought it was really critical that you knew that this is part of our responsibility once this does get approved.
Thank you. So this is the agreement of certification, which Mayor Osbacher has just signed, and has that been forwarded to the
I
state?
will forward it once I have each of your resumes. Since this is a professional board, we do need to submit resumes as part of the certification through the State Historic Preservation Office. So at your leisure, if you're able to get me those resumes electronically is fine, and then I will submit that with the agreement that the mayor has signed.
You
Okay.
still have mine from, I think I just recently submitted it, but I'm happy to do it again.
Oh, okay. Did you send it maybe to city administration office or,
I sent it to the mayor.
okay, I can
Yeah.
check with him. That's
Okay,
fine.
okay.
Thank you.
And ideally, we want to highlight our historic preservation activities as individuals. I won't have a lot of data for that as a university music teacher, but I'll put in new items as I can to be appropriate for that. And you would like these within what, a week, 2 weeks? How soon do you want?
Sure,
Yesterday?
I think within a week is fine, but
Okay.
I'm not going to give you a deadline. Whenever you're able to, we'll
Okay.
get that sent.
Okay, good. There's a lot of things on here that we have to do even in the first year. I just read this very quickly, but I think we have to maybe study this agreement, make sure that we stay up with what we're supposed to do. And if you can help us with that, Heather, that'd be great.
Yes,
Reminding
definitely.
us.
Mhm.
I don't know that we need to go through it line by line today. Anything specific that we should highlight?
And I think we'll know more details once it's actually submitted and accepted. Since you will notice there is a training component that you're required to do annually. I don't know what that looks like yet, but again, just something to bring to your attention that would be something to fit into your schedule at some point.
Oh, the one thing that came from Chris on that, like over in Akron, like $10 for non-AIA members. It seemed pretty.
Yes, and I do believe the Historic Preservation Office has their own training, so that's
Okay.
what I believe we have to follow. But again, we'll get more details.
And we don't know if that's like on a Zoom training, or we have to go in person somewhere.
I do not know that
Okay,
yet.
we'll find that out.
Yeah, and I think Heritage Ohio, which is an organization that I'm familiar with that Chris
Yes.
forwarded. They have a ton of, I don't think that will be an issue at all. They have a ton of educational materials that we'll probably be able to access either virtually or just downloading, something like that. I'm sure that it won't be a problem.
Okay, great. So that's excellent to have that moving forward. Okay, well, let's let's move on to some administrative issues.
John, I had one thing I wanted to
Yes,
bring up
Sure.
under administrative issues. It's a question about the public records law. Heather, I think I was thinking about deleting some emails and files, and then I thought, what are the correspondence that we've had with Mr. Hyder and with Mr. Drain,
Right.
Mr. and Mrs. Drain? Do you have copies of those? And
Yes.
So, okay, so we have that as part of the record then?
Yes,
so it's not necessary for the committee members to
no,
hold those.
no, we have
Not
those,
from a
yeah,
legal point of view, yeah.
right.
Okay,
Well, and technically there's, our records retention, there's this sort of catch-all phrase that says when they're no longer of administrative value. Well, one could argue that now since the ordinance has been passed, I don't necessarily know that it's of value anymore, but we do keep them
yeah,
in our minute book.
but you'll do whatever the city's policy
Correct,
is in
yes.
that respect.
Yes,
So Christina, these were two members of the community that were objecting to some of the wording of our ordinance, and we corresponded with them. I don't know that it was to their satisfaction, but there has been some back and forth on that. And I think I don't think there's any more correspondence that needs to take place at this point with those people.
Maybe just a note to all of us that if we do for any reason engage in any correspondence with anyone, then we want to make sure that Heather has copies so that
Good.
it's
good.
part of the record.
The other item I have under this category was a request from Mr. Todd McGee, who is the program coordinator for the Exchange Club here in Bowling Green. And he has asked if we could and would be willing to provide a speaker for their Exchange Club, which meets, I think, is it Tuesdays at noon every other week? And what they would like is a 15 to 25-minute presentation from the HPC committee. I would love if one of our committee members would volunteer to do that. Hello, Chris.
Hi, Chris.
Welcome. We've just introduced Christina Tracy, who's joined us, and this is Chris Mullen. You know each other, of course.
Yes.
Okay. So I'm mentioning that we have a request to do some outreach with the Exchange Club of Bowling Green, and we're, Chris, I think you know about this already. No?
Yeah. Yes, I'd
And we're
heard
looking,
about it, yeah.
we're looking for one of our members to volunteer to do a presentation for them. Why don't we think about that? And I'm not going to ask
willing
you.
to do it but I would, if somebody else is interested, then I think that would be.
No, I
better.
think you'd be good. You two have the most history. Like, I sent an email to John. I should have copied everybody. That I think it'd be good to develop like an outline of what you
Yeah.
present, like your notes, you and John, because you both did excellent presentations, so that we have something to follow to make sure we cover things. That way, we're all
That's a
consistent.
good idea.
It might be a good idea and a just suggestion that, maybe we develop some sort of presentation, like a stock presentation, so that if there are other requests that come through, it would just be the same presentation. Any one of us could, is that what you were
That's
trying
what
to
I
say?
said.
Yeah,
Yep,
okay.
yep. Kind of standardized
Yeah.
topics and make sure this gets covered and kind of about starting with the history and
So Les, would you be willing to start that,
Sure.
that model? And I can correspond with Todd and just tell him that we're interested. The first date he listed was May 4th. I think we should avoid that one too soon. May 18th or the 24th were the other dates that he was asking for.
Okay, so if you let him know, then he presumably will get in touch with me and we'll
Okay.
arrange something.
Okay, that'd be great. Thank you.
I'd like to attend if I can attend just here. too.
Great.
Thank
Okay. Well, we're all welcome to go. I may be in California for my son's wedding, depending on when we actually do this, but
We'll zoom you in.
that would be great.
When we already have the PowerPoint, just really you could.
Right. So
adapt
we can
that
use, we can use some of the materials that we've used for city council and for the planning commission and just develop that a little bit.
I thought in your handout.
Good. But I think this is exactly the kind of thing that we want to do as we start working on public engagement. So it might be a good warm up,
Probably keeping record of these too.
right?
But
I think we're at a point where things can get exciting now in a good way.
Yeah.
Now that we've got some of the administrative work done, we've done working on for me, year and a half, and for Les, maybe 8 years. But it's nice to have that mostly behind us. Of course, we haven't got the CLG passed totally by the state, but I think that that's going to go fairly smoothly. So I think we'll be in good shape there. Okay, any other administrative concerns? All right.
Did didn't you already talk about the CLG?
No, we haven't gotten there yet.
Okay, okay, that's all.
And we can skip around a little bit, but I had on the next item, the continuing with the public engagement plan. We don't really have a historic preservation promotion plan, and we should be thinking about what that might be. Did you have some ideas on that, Les?
Well, I wanted to suggest a couple of things. It's not really an overall plan, but I've been thinking about the kinds of things we might try to do first that would give a real boost maybe to the initiative in the city. One would be to approach the city itself to see if the city would be willing to take a lead here and add the facade of the old post office building and Needle Hall. They would be willing to make them part of this plan. It would be publicity for us. It would also be a real start. And the same thing with the county. Just as important, maybe even more important, if the county were willing to put the courthouse, possibly the library and that building they own across the street.
Yeah.
That would be another sort of, I won't use that phrase, but another useful start. Well, low-hanging fruit is what I was thinking of. Relatively easy things to begin with.
Now, when you talk about sponsorship, what do you mean by that?
Well, they would have to agree that, according to the terms of the CLG legislation, they would have to agree to list those properties.
To put them down in a
I should have
listing?
used the
Okay,
proposal would be to see if the city and the county would agree to list those properties as an early move on our part. Well, we have to wait obviously until the National Park Service completes everything. And then the third thing I was thinking about, I've heard a couple of different times, and most recently, I think maybe this move is imminent. The university, I think, intends to tear down the administration building.
Yes.
And part of that plan, as I saw it originally, was to make a new sort of entry point to the university that kind of replicates the original from way back
mhm.
50 to
Yeah,
100
20.
years ago. And that means Court Street. So I'm wondering if we shouldn't be talking with the university to see if there's any way they could help us if one of the things that we want to do in the long run is get that Court Street corridor between the university and the downtown, including the courthouse, into a historic district, either part of a single historic district or a freestanding one. So it seems to me that talking with people at the university might be a smart move for us as soon as possible, since I think their plans are fairly imminent. That was, maybe.
Well, Lori Treader and I actually meet with the university monthly.
Uh-huh.
One of the priorities has been to discuss Court Street and what the future means with the work they're doing. So the administration building will come down by April of 2022. They actually, have spent a lot of the impetus of that was to get it back to its historic character. So they have studied the original entryway and how they can replicate that, and it really opening up campus. They have shown us some bare bones renderings of what it could look like. Very beautiful. And again, we are continuing with what Court Street may look like in concert with the university. So it's definitely something we're discussing, and certainly historic preservation is a big part of Court Street. We see it that could be, very pedestrian friendly, bicycle friendly. There's just a lot of opportunities in regards to the city, university, downtown, and courthouse. I mean, there's just so much beauty there that really can be enhanced.
Right.
So Les must have been listening to our conversation, because you really
No.
hit on it. So, but yes, I definitely, it's on
Yeah.
our radar. We're discussing it, and there's a lot of opportunities about how that looks and how we move it forward.
Do you have any sense of whether they might be positively inclined to the idea of historic preservation of some of the existing homes
Well, I
that come
think,
toward, that are closer to the city, or are they talking about redeveloping the whole damn thing?
well, at this point, they're worried about their own property, of course, and what
Yeah.
that will look like.
Right.
But certainly, I think they would be helpful or open to anything they could do to assist us, the city. We want to visualize that Court Street together, though, for sure.
So maybe you can be our sort of advocate at this point.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
if you
Mhm.
get any sense that we ought to be trying to, reach some particular person, some particular
Yes.
VP or whatever,
Yep,
maybe the
absolutely.
president.
They
and
actually have a
Well,
new
like-
person
talk about
starting that will
Like the
be,
campus architect.
The campus architect.
they actually
I'm
have a new, I'm going to mess up this title, I apologize, Director of Campus Planning, I believe,
Mhm.
starting
Uh-huh. Okay.
next month, I believe. So we will meet him, and I know he'll be a big part of that. Now, you have to be mindful that there's so much going on, not only Court Street over there, that, the city's work on the Gateway corridor, that rezoning. So there's a lot of things at work with Court, not only Court Street, but Thurston and
Mhm.
Worcester. So a lot of work ahead of us, but certainly historic preservation is really important, and that character of the whole area.
Well, even if they were simply willing to go on some kind of public record that they like the idea of that happening on some part of Court Street as part of the overall plan, that would be helpful to us.
Well, and I think our commission's statement of the fact that we want to be involved, if we can be, I'm not sure how,
Sure.
what our role can be at this point, if any, but we certainly like to be involved. And, as we start talking about inventories of homes and overlays of districts, I mean, maybe that could be a focal point for us to work on first. I'm not sure what we can do before we get totally the state accreditation. I don't know what they call it. As soon as they allow us to publicize that we have
Well, I mean, technically you can, your ordinance is still in effect. It's just a matter of you don't have access yet to their advantages or benefits. So if that makes sense, I think
Yeah.
Chris is nodding that she
Yeah.
understands what I'm trying to say, maybe not as clearly as I should, but the ordinance is still in effect. So once that was passed and 30 days later, so you are able to designate, it's just you don't have those resources yet from the state.
Mhm.
What is the timing of that, of when we would officially be capable of offering that?
That's hard to say, because our ordinance was reviewed by the state, but now it has to go to the National Park Service.
Right.
Well, federal government, I mean, I don't want to, not trying to sound negative, but who knows? I mean, I don't know if it'll take 2 weeks, a month. It probably depends on how much they have in the inbox. So we're waiting on them to review and then get that feedback. And because we might have to amend our ordinance based on those comments, or they may approve it. And then from there, the state can approve our agreement with the state to be able to be certified.
once that happens, are we allocated X amount of dollars per our, no, we're not. Is it by project that you're allocated?
You're
for
able
grants? You
to
submit per
apply.
Project, okay,
For grants,
okay.
yes.
Okay.
And Chris obviously knows more about that than me, I believe.
If they intend, if just, forgive me, I'm gonna ask a lot of questions.
Good.
If they intend to do, Chris, maybe you might know, if they intend to build, in the spirit of a historical replication of, what the building was before, would that qualify from a grant perspective for any sort of, by chance?
Well, replication is tricky.
Okay,
If you don't know like 100% what was there, have the exact plans and photos, they don't want to create a false narrative. So that's the tough part in terms of replication. If it's restoration or rehabilitation, then there's plenty of guidance and opportunity through state and federal opportunities.
And tax credits,
Right.
for sure.
Yeah.
yeah, I was just reading, just in the way they were designating some of the definitions, it sounded like, and obviously this is just to your point, like, um, rehabilitation or, renovation to what the buildings,
Mhm.
not to hold, so I forget what the term was, so true to, exact replication, but had some leeway as it relates to what it looked like. I didn't know if new construction was ever considered in any of the.
The only encounter I've seen is when there's an easement on a property where it can't be torn down basically, and someone tears it down, and then they have to rebuild it exactly how it was. But when there's an easement on a property like that, there's a lot of documentation, so they have But I don't personally know of a project where they've replicated with historic tax dollars. If Sauter Village just built a whole, 1920s Main Street, but that was with their own funding, but so
would the
people
goal-
do it, but I just don't know if tax dollar or if
It would be
any
applicable to receive any
grants or
sort of
tax
funding.
dollars, yeah.
So my next question is, so is the goal then to just be in communication with the university as they, walk along this journey, and then making sure that, the design of the building is complementary to whatever, some of the specifications that are here, or what would be the goal of, how could we offer any sort of partnership with
Yeah.
the university?
Were you thinking of something there, Les?
I was not thinking particularly about that aspect of it, but it does make sense that we might be asked to consult because of our interest in preservation to help them. I mean, through Heather, we can certainly make that offer, right? I think we should.
Yeah, and they're not looking at new construction, so I don't know if I'm not being clear. It's really a plaza that they're looking at having, more green space.
Oh, I'm sorry, I
Recreating
misunderstood.
the
Okay.
gateway. There originally was kind of a brick wall and some pretty gate there. So that's what they're looking to do. So not really not build anything. They want to open up campus. So really you can see the historic core where University Hall is especially. That's their goal. Really
Maybe
That
softening
building's
the
just
area.
coming down. so
Correct.
that-
Yes, no
I
more building.
misunderstood.
Yep,
Okay.
yep, no more
And some
building.
of there's pictures of that, like out at Myers,
Yes.
like
mhm.
with the 1920.
Yeah.
something
Yeah, there's
cars.
kind of like a mini roundabout and yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think they have all
My-
kind
my
of
apologies.
Yeah.
Oh, no, you're
photographic
fine.
evidence.
I wrote in my notes to contact Arsenio Rodriguez. He's the director of the School of the Built Environment, and he is over architecture and construction management. They're in it. So I'm going to contact him because I know Salima Wazani was heavily into historic preservation. He's on sabbatical this
Oh,
semester.
I wondered, we haven't heard from him in a while.
Yeah, so I'm tempted. I'm curious to see like their interest in in architectural historic preservation, to see if there's even could develop a spatialization, or it may already exist. Just to see if there's ways that we could
I
even
think that
have.
would be great.
have them even
The
get-
more contact we can have with anyone
Yep.
in the university.
'Cause I think they
about
could
the
even
general
do
ideas.
some conceptual ideas as part of classes, and I mean it's
Can-
April 2022. That's pretty soon. That's not that,
Yeah, it actually is.
when you think it's only a year, but
Yeah, I'm not sure that they're going to listen too much to the university's going to do what they want.
Yeah.
But we can encourage them. And you were talking, I think, Wes, about not so much what the university does, but how it comes out of the university into the community. Or
Yeah,
am I
partly
misunderstanding?
for Christina's benefit. I mean, what we would presumably do, and what we've talked about doing, is trying to get some part of the area or near the county courthouse part of a historic district. To do that, we have to survey property owners to see if they're supportive. The university might or might not be one of those property owners. Whoever owns the houses that still exist would be others. So we have a process we have to go through. But certainly if we had the university on our side,
Yeah.
that would help us,
I see. Okay.
especially with maybe some of the landlords who might otherwise be less enthusiastic.
So these buildings and the Court Street area that you've mentioned, possibly becoming a local historic district. Do you envision us as a commission compiling all of that historic information that says this is, there's going to be all this backup that explains why it's
Yeah.
historically valuable to the city?
I don't envision the possibility that we could possibly do all of that ourselves alone.
Yeah.
So I think if and when we get the building inventories, then we've got to start talking about
How to do it?
how we're going to do
well,
that.
that's,
Yep.
that was an item in item C in the agreement.
And
I
we
know,
have,
it's
they
something
that we have to
something
maintain
we
a
need to
system,
do. There's no
says
question.
maintain a system for the survey and inventory of historic property.
Yeah, they may be able, they might be willing to provide us with some money that would help us hire
They
some
being
help or,
SHPO. They being SHPO.
yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
I mean, we're
Good
going to
point.
rely on homeowners to provide a lot of this, I would think,
Yes.
right? This information.
Probably one of the things that
Yeah.
have to happen.
But
So
there's,
and I apologize for I've done this for commercial properties for local districts. I've never done it for residential, but there's like you basically give a historic background about the building, like who lived there if that was important, and then a description of what the physical description of the building. And that was that's how you kind
That's
of
the
that's how
inventory.
you're proving to the city that this is worthwhile for, to be a part of it.
so for those, just from my curiosity, how extensive is that inventory? Are we talking about pages and pages and pages of information or one-page inventory?
So the State Preservation Office actually has an inventory sheet. That's a little bit different than the nominations that I've worked on. So those inventory, it's sometimes a 2-page document.
Okay, so reasonably
Yeah.
small. Okay.
But the nominations that I've done, those are, it's maybe a 8-page write-up. It's not, but you just want to give like the historic context to
Okay.
the building or to the district.
Good. Well, that's one of the things on our agenda for today was at least initiating that discussion about inventories. And the fact that we're going to have to get to it reasonably soon, I think.
It's kind of jumping ahead, but since we're talking about it here, I'll mention Sue and I are sort of interested in doing something about our own house. And if we had a sort of plan or an outline of what we needed to do or what typically needs to be done, that would be a great starting point for us.
Maybe we, at least the three of us, should do our own houses as a sample to see what it.
Thinking Heather probably could contact either through the state, but some of these other cities like Hudson and some of the ones that already have been doing this, that maybe we could get some templates or copies of their, like, some that are completed, maybe the blank one that they use
For the nomination.
for the the inventories, like the survey, like what's their survey look like and
Sure, and I'm sure the state historic preservation office will
Yeah.
have all that too.
Yep. Yeah, and there's a standard form that we can get from the State Preservation Office for the inventory.
Okay.
It's
Yeah, because they
It's
really
really
want
save
us
us
to use the digital
reinventing it, yeah.
model is what it said in that,
Yeah.
I think, the agreement. Or our ordinance, I should say. Our ordinance that
Wow.
says that.
I'm assuming that you start maybe with the auditor's website or something and that you try to find out, when the house was built and I don't know, maybe you have to look through the files of the Sentinel Tribune and see if you can find anything. I mean, it
Yeah.
must be hard to do, but
Yeah, and I know you attended my house history
Yeah,
workshop,
right.
not mine, but
But
that was what
yes.
the title of it was. And the Wood County auditor, they don't they don't record past 1900. So a lot of our turn of the century buildings are listed at they were built in 1900. And even though, so that's where mine's listed, even though it was built in 1894. And the only reason I know that is I found old newspaper articles
Oh,
that stated because a fancy lawyer in town built my house and he was in the newspaper about it.
So I
So
did it with that walking tour and I even looked at obituaries. I know that
Yep.
sounds morbid, but that they provide a lot of information and that's how we got some building dates for people too and
Yeah.
professions of who
Mhm.
live there. So
and then there's old insurance maps that show some of
Mhm.
that. And so there's a lot of resources, but I work with people who they spent 6 years in school learning all that. So I rely on them to kind of walk me through some of those processes.
so Chris, could you locate those inventory things from the state
yep.
that we, or maybe Heather can do it more easily, I don't know, but just, and send us a copy?
Yeah, I have plenty of examples that I can
That'd be
send
great.
as
Excellent.
and then there's got to be a blank form on
Yeah.
the state website somewhere.
Forms.
Great.
And we'll want to do this for the downtown area too at some point. I don't know how soon we can get to all this, but we can be thinking about it anyway.
well,
Okay.
anyway, on the question of possibly approaching the city and the county, is that something that we want to do?
I think it's a great idea.
And
Yeah.
how shall we do it? I made contact with Andrew Palmar at one early point. He gave him a copy of our proposed legislation. Haven't heard back from him. Same with Michael Penrod at the library. So, if you think it's a good idea, I'm willing, especially with the county, I'm willing to contact Andrew again. Maybe talk to somebody like Mike Siberson, who's retired now, but he's knows the courthouse intimately. He
Yeah.
might be, and he was on the committee that I was on some years ago. If he would be if he was willing to help, that might be an entree to the commissioners.
Okay, now just to be clear, Les, what you're
Yep.
suggesting is that these buildings eventually be on the National Register and that they be nominated to be on the register.
They're already on the National Register.
Then
They
you're
should be listed
Locally.
under
under the
under the
HPC
CLG.
CLG.
Yeah.
Okay, which I would think that there wouldn't be any
You know, you would
hesitation,
think
but we
that-
don't
you would
know.
think that
Right.
they would be
Okay, so
positive,
that's
but-
something that we need to get an agreement for. Okay,
Yeah,
Good.
I could see the post office being the stickiest one since they're planning on doing work to it quickly.
it sounds like that's already in the works.
Yeah.
I'm sure
Yeah,
there's been some,
We certainly have to compromise from the get-go and say it's only the facade that
Right.
we
Oh,
want
right, you said
protected
facade.
because it's already been decided, I think, that the rest is going to be
Yeah.
changed, but
right.
that's okay. I mean, that's something.
Yeah.
Oh,
And
yeah,
I don't know if,
I
do
joked
any
I
of
was
you
gonna
have,
chain myself to the building if they're gonna tear the whole thing down, so.
this?
From the
wish-
city's standpoint, would that be Lori that we would want to talk to about Needle Hall and?
You could start, I would think maybe with the mayor first, since you've already, I think, talked with him before.
About the post office or about,
Yep, post office and
And Needle
Needle
Hall.
Hall.
okay, contact mayor. As far as their plans at the moment and whether or not they would be supportive of being part of the CLG.
Right.
Okay,
I just went to Google house inventory.
Yeah.
And one pulled up. I just emailed it to everyone.
Oh, yeah.
It's actually Wilson Hall at the University of Ohio.
Hmm. Yeah, I just finished a 150 building historic district nomination, federal nomination.
Wow.
And I just got all those Ohio historic inventories. That's a great place to start for any research. They're really
Like it's
helpful.
done by hand too, so it's not what
Oh, yeah.
this.
okay, well, I'll work on a letter to the mayor. I may consult with some of you about the wording of that, but I'll prepare something asking for his interest in ultimately getting this listed on this, our CLG when when the appropriate time is there, once we get that all settled with the state. Okay, any other business in that?
So just to ask about the library, my sense is that the county commissioners don't really have direct responsibility for the library, even though it's a county facility. So does anyone here feel comfortable with talking to Penrod or somebody in the library to see what their level of interest might be?
Now, you're talking about the public library?
Yeah. The
Okay,
Wood County Public Library.
which is not a historic building anymore.
Well, I don't know. When was that built?
Not very long. I mean,
It's not 50 years.
Well, yeah.
I don't know whether there was much there before they renovated.
Oh, it's a
It's
brand new
brand new.
building. I mean,
Right.
Yeah.
Well, it's new since I moved to Bowling Green, which was in 84. Sorry, in
yeah, so
77.
it doesn't meet the 50-year,
But the house,
but the house
Yeah.
definitely
The,
would.
the what's it called? The Hartman House? No, the house across the street from
Yeah,
there.
yeah.
Maurer's mother, right? Bob Maurer's mother,
Carter House. There
Carter.
we go.
Carter.
Yeah.
Mary
Yeah,
Carter.
that definitely is. That's an interesting home, and that should be listed, I hope, at some point.
I'm happy to, I don't have a relationship with him, but I am happy to have a conversation if someone has his contact information.
With the library.
Mhm.
Yeah, okay. That'd be great.
Um,
Or I can
Does
probably
anybody know?
find his contact information.
'Cause I have a phone number, which
Oh.
I just got.
I
I
have
don't
his
remember
email.
how I got it, but,
I
Okay.
have his email.
oh, okay,
Mhm.
email.
Okay, let's move on to item number 7, Certified Local Government Program and the status. I think we sort of know where we're at, but let's just review that. The mayor has signed off on our CLG, and we're prepared to send that in as soon as the members of our committee get their resumes into Heather. So hopefully we can do that soon.
Is there a specific format or anything they need for the resumes?
No, it doesn't
Okay.
get that detailed.
Okay.
Anything else that we need to do on that, Heather, or has that all been
Yeah,
prepared?
I think it's just a waiting game until we get all that in.
Okay,
Great news, basically.
excellent.
Yeah, it's
Mhm.
moving right along.
Really.
Okay, under that category, we had a kind of an unfinished item with landscaping. And I don't know if it's appropriate or if we need to talk about that a little bit, but perhaps we should. I think you were bringing up some concern there, Les.
Right. Well, you all remember that at the end of the city council meeting, where they approved the document, first Jeff Dennis made a comment about the language in the, it's now in the minimum maintenance section, the 15809, as appropriate to the era, which we added because we intended only to make the point that if the era in which a building was built did not call for any landscaping, then we would defer to the original. But
Right.
it was badly worded because, as Jeff kind of pointed out, if you read it literally, it applies to everybody. You'd have to try to find out what kind of landscaping was there appropriate to the era of the building. We never intended to do that.
Right.
So we need to clean that up.
Well, are you suggesting a change to the document, in which case we
Okay,
would
well,
have?
that raises an interesting question, which I just thought of this morning. Maybe it sort of depends on city council. Maybe city council would be agreeable to our creating our own clarification guidelines documents in which we clarified that, our intention. Or maybe they want to, for looking at Bill, because he's
He's
the
here.
representative here, or whether they would want to actually amend
Because it seemed like
the,
that may be something, like, I'm just thinking that like amending, if there's other things that come from the state and the government, you know, that maybe then we introduce something, but no, they're not right now until we hear back from the state
Yeah, that's a good
Park
point.
Service. And then if they have something to change, then we could do it. I gave some thought to it.
Yeah,
you
good.
know, And I'm gonna pass something out. I thought of changing the definition at, 15803N, instead of calling it landscaping, I guess
You wouldn't.
that I went back and looked at the Secretary of Interior's standards. Have you been able to get a copy of that?
No, don't have that one.
He probably needs an email of the standards, like the electronic copy. At some point, I'd like to get a physical copy, because those are,
The 200 and something page one?
252.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I don't think I gave that to anybody. I have my own copy.
Somehow I got it. I thought maybe.
Well, there's a,
link.
oh, you mean the
Digital.
link, not
Yeah.
printing it out?
Well, I have it in my iPad,
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
yeah, the link is, yeah,
Yeah.
that's easy.
but I refer to it, and it has quite a few references to landscaping. And it gets into like when it's under the restoration section, under the preservation section, under the repair section, it covers it in each of those. And so I started thinking, they keep referring to landscape features. And that's my thought would be to modify it to say landscape features. Now they say, because this is the definition, I added some notes here, pretty much verbatim. It says, means circulation systems. The Secretary of Interior says, such as roads and streets. My thoughts would be to change it to streets and driveways. Because driveways get into it too, because that's part of landscaping. The city has some things on driveways about being paved, and some of the historic ones, maybe they would need to be paved back with bricks, or they may already be bricks and want to keep them bricks, for example. But then it says, furnishings and fixtures such as light posts or benches, vegetation, gardens and yards, adjacent open space such as fields, parks, commons. And the Secretary of Interior says, or woodlands. To me, I would delete that and just say, I'd end with parks or commons, period. And important views or visual relationships. They include that as a landscape features, the views. Okay. And then what I looked at for 15809, that's where it talks about the appropriate. So I didn't, on that one, it was item B.
Right.
And on here, I was going to change, in ours it says landscaping shall be provided, maintained, or unlisted properties and properties within the historic district. And I was going to change that first sentence to this one, again, out of the Secretary of Interior. Says they have identifying, retaining. There's a section on repairing, so I added it because it wasn't in where I quoted this from. It says retaining, repairing, and preserving building and landscape features that are important in defining the overall historic character of the setting. And I was going to take out the word settings and change it to match what we had there in that sentence one. Just says character of listed properties and properties within a historic district.
Yeah.
But I didn't get into looking at that second sentence, and that's the one you talked about last, about the word there. Probably should have been appropriate because it's appropriated
Yeah, that's,
foundation.
yeah, that's too bad.
But
That's
that-
just a typo.
But that one sentence, I didn't get into, that's a discussion.
Okay, so Christina, this was a kind of a sticky point, the landscaping wording, and with the city council, we went around and around on that one. I thank you for preparing that. I want to study what you've read a little bit more, but
Was just trying to tie it to the
Yeah.
Secretary of Interior standards.
Right.
I do like the idea of maybe not proposing any amendments right now, but waiting until we hear back from the state and from the Park Service as far as other changes, and then at that point, maybe inserting some of this.
What was the main issue that they were having? I know that you noted Jeff Dennis said historic era of the property. Was that the main, or was there another one?
There was one
the
talked
other-
about
that was-
alterations.
That was one. The other one was Greg Robinette, who said, just in passing at the end, I find contradictions among the definitions of alteration, landscaping, and the section on minimum requirements, 15809. But there was no elaboration, so we're only guessing what he had in mind, although when I went back and looked at alterations, I could see a problem. The definition of alteration simply says any change to a listed property. And so if we don't do some clarifying there, it is a problem. Because we don't want to be in the business of checking landscaping unless possibly when a property is listed, we identify some aspect of the landscaping as historically significant. Then it would be part of the listing and would be protected. But otherwise, it's owner's choice. But I agree that we shouldn't try to settle it now. And I think, here, I'll just pass out something that I drafted. There's one for Heather. More than needed that way.
This is landscaping also.
This is also landscaping, so
Okay.
we have Will's ideas.
We
These
can
these
bl-
are possible.
blend them together, maybe.
Maybe, well, we should just look them over and see,
Sure.
and in the
You
meantime,
want to explain what you have here?
yeah, I can do it quickly.
I think I got your notes here too.
In the first one, oh, where'd that stuff come from? Thank you. I was wondering why there were so many sheets of paper there. Okay, the first one, I think that if we got rid of the phrase "as appropriate to the historic era of the property" and substituted the phrase "unless the design of the building and its own historic era specifically excludes the use of such plantings," then that would clarify that we're not touching anything that was historically did not involve plantings. Sorry. The other one's a little more complicated, but what I'm suggesting there basically is that we add a note to
Same.
the definition of alteration that says something like this does not apply to any landscaping features unless such features, grottos, fences, et cetera, are specifically designated as having historic significance when the property is listed. So I think we should think about this and.
Yeah, I like
maybe
that, 'cause
try to
I-
bring the two things together.
I looked
and-
at that alteration section. I was thinking it didn't really include landscapes. I thought about putting except for landscaping, but I like what you added in case, unless there is something that's,
There could be, there could
Substantial.
be, there's some,
'Cause it
some
talks-
famous grotto or something in
Well,
somebody's
exactly.
backyard that
yeah.
is historically significant.
Yeah, what the standards talk about is like if there's hedges and that, and there's some plants that are missing out of it, they even talk about those getting replaced or,
Mhm.
to match the rest of the hedge. So it goes into something.
Okay, so I think we're in agreement. We're not going to propose any alterations to the document or anything to
Hold on.
send on to city council at this point. Heather, there's one typo that I see here that I think can change on 158.09, letter C. Owners who fail to provide as reasonable care. I think you don't want that D, right?
Right.
Okay, minor thing. Otherwise, I think we're good. Okay, we can table that discussion
Right,
until next
until-
time.
Until it comes up at until we hear back from the National Park Service.
Right,
And then at that point, maybe we can somehow informally or formally, whichever is appropriate, sort of ask city council whether they prefer to amend the document or leave it to us. And we can show them exactly what we would propose whenever we're ready, what we would propose to do in the way of clarification and.
and if they don't want to change
if they
it, we just
prefer to have
make
us do it,
our own little
we can-
sub.
We can formalize it, we
Yeah.
can say adopted, some formal language, got
From these
clarifications
three
and
areas,
guidelines
yeah.
adopted,
Right.
such and such date, and,
I
et
think,
cetera.
I think
Cover
city,
those 3 areas.
city council might be a little tired of our our wording of this document. So we'll see.
Give 'em a-
Okay, thank you. Let's go on. We're moving ahead pretty good here. Number 8, implementation, and we've already gotten into some of this. Creation of design guidelines, HPC design guidelines, which again, Les, I think you were considering that as an issue.
Yeah, so one thing, depending on how council prefers to handle this, one thing would be to deal with the landscaping issue and such a set of clarifications, guidelines, whatever we choose to call it. Another thing I think is important is that we put in writing in some kind of formal way for us, the definitions of historic structure, site, et cetera. Council decided they didn't want them in the legislation, which is fine, but I think we need them to guide us in how we approach the designations of properties. And the other thing I can think of at this point is that whole section that we had in about sort of describing, I think we called it review of design guidelines or something, and we listed what the 4 categories are that the Secretary of the Interior establishes, preservation, restoration, et cetera,
Definitely.
Mhm.
and make the point that in the vast majority of cases, it's rehabilitation, or it's restoration that's, I can't remember which one, rehabilitation, I mean, that will apply to 99% of anything we ever get, and some other stuff that maybe that should also be in some kind of formal guideline
So sort of
statement from us.
sort of a handbook for us to, I mean, we need a place to keep this stuff so we can find it other
Yeah,
than,
so those are kind of the 3 things I have in mind right now that I think And eventually, I think Will has pointed out several times, we'll probably discover that we need additional statements of guideline or principle that will govern historic
Definitely.
preservation commissions in the future, as well as the one right now.
Because I think the guidelines, I think that I like the idea of still like incentives for people to want to do this. If somebody sees a house doing really nice landscaping and makes their house look more historic,
Right.
but they may want to do that, you
Right.
know? Those kind of things, like more incentives.
Yeah, yeah, I don't think we want to be the police
No, no.
here. We want to, you know,
That's what I even thought
Encourage.
on the landscape section. I know, Les, you added a lot in there about the spacing of plants and things like that. And my thoughts were, I'm not sure whether to have that, you know, about the foundation covering. I mean, because it's getting into the detail of the spacing of the plant. That's just was a
Yeah.
thought.
We're
know, when
gonna
we-
have to go back
When
to
we
all
come
of
back and
that.
visit that.
I mean, I think I was pretty upfront about my motivation. My motivation was to
Yeah.
try to deal with the rotten apples in the
Yeah.
community.
Yeah.
If they happen to wind up in a historic district, I sort of hate the idea of just letting that go forever. So that was why I pushed, personally, why I pushed for the landscaping. But we can discuss
Yeah.
all of that.
But some of that could be like very worded in the ordinance, but then the guidelines could get into offering suggestions about
Yeah.
like what plants in the
Right,
space,
right.
things that.
Yeah.
I think the guidelines are a good idea.
Okay, so I think that's an agenda item for the future, but I wanted to sort of establish whether as a group we think that the principle of establishing such a set of guidelines is a good idea.
I think it's a good idea.
Guidelines, clarifications. I
You
think.
could get into
Clarification.
roofing and
Okay,
all kinds of different
Lighting,
things.
windows, yeah.
Especially if you know, are putting pictures in there. People, you know, like look what the, or the, whatever, it is. I feel like that would.
Yeah, and there's the Secretary of Interior Standards, they have, you know, like even just one page do and don't
Yeah.
type
Yeah.
stuff. And we could cater that to Bowling
Yeah.
Green and just, but follow their format and I mean, we won't be starting from scratch is my point.
Yeah.
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 Okay, so maybe we'll keep that on one of the agenda items at least for future discussion.
Yep.
Good. Revised FAQs, we may want to prepare or revise our list for future meetings with our community.
Our current FAQs are about what a CLG is, what the ordinance will do, that sort of thing, right?
Yeah,
I can't remember them, but
yeah, I think they need to be redone now with a different purpose and a
Right.
different audience in mind, but they
Mhm.
could still be very useful, I think, to
Mhm.
hand out to
I agree.
people when we get talking with folks about possible creation of a possible historic district. A lot of questions are going to come up again about,
Right.
what do I have to do?
Yep. Those are on our website, is that right?
I believe so, yes.
Or I have them in email too.
Right.
Had a volunteer or someone who
Yeah.
wanted to start looking at them.
yeah, do we have anyone who wants to take that one on? Not really? Okay, all right.
I was
let's
say, I
see
need to
what-
look at what's included already.
Let's
and
already,
what-
let's all study those FAQs
Yeah.
and come back with some suggestions for change, okay, for next time?
I don't think I have. Is on the website?
I'll email you.
Okay.
That's
If
okay.
you'd include me too, if you would.
Okay,
Thank you so much.
I'll just do all of you.
That's the best, that's the best way.
Okay. We've talked a little bit about community meetings with local entities, and maybe we should get this first one behind us, and we can start branching out. At some point, I think we need a community meeting. I mean, we're not ready for that yet because we're not ready to actually talk about overlay districts, but we may want to have a meeting of the community, invite them to the library for a question and answer session, demonstration, some kind of a presentation. We could do that at the Wood County Museum. I mean, there's some possibilities of just being proactive and helping the community. We've gotten a little bit of press already. The paper picked us up. We were on the radio for a little bit.
Also host something at Juniper.
Oh.
That would be great.
yeah.
Like,
plenty of
I
space
know that
there.
we've, obviously, business pandemic, but and a lot of events at Juniper, and one of them did partnerships as much as possible with University City. So, love to do something on our the present.
Maybe, what would you think of inviting our downtown owners for a session in Juniper? That would be a great place to, I don't know how many we can get to.
I was just gonna say, I don't know how to get,
Yeah.
but I think it's a great idea.
Mhm.
I know there's some resistance from downtown as well, so.
And I think that meeting, we would really want to just focus on the incentives.
I was just
I
going to
was
say the
just
same
gonna
thing.
say that.
Focus
Not
on
worry,
what?
the incentives.
Incentives, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, so we need to really get those defined and,
Yeah.
and talk
I
about.
think you could do both. I think you could do the downtown and the commercial piece as well as the residential piece in one meeting.
At the same time? Okay.
Yeah,
I mean, a lot of the incentives are going to be similar.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's a lot right now. There's tax credit opportunity for commercial. Hopefully someday we'll have residential tax credit options, but so I think, and there's a lot of just general economic incentive for preservation. So I think if we can just kind of focus on those and then,
I think the tax credit conversation might be more specified.
Yeah.
That one
Yeah.
is for, I think there's schools in town don't understand that program
Yeah.
that really would think that it is lucrative for them like that. Don't you agree?
I think there's some perception maybe that it's more hassle than it's worth.
Right.
And I mean, if you're working on a $6 million project and you're getting 25% federal tax credits and 20% state tax credits, and you're only spending $40,000 to get all that paperwork done, like, but you're getting $1 million. I mean, seems to me like it's worth it. So, yeah, it's a little more hoops, but
And the state credits have to be paired with federal.
you can do them. You
them
can do it by yourself.
standalone?
Mhm.
Okay.
You can do either one by themselves. You can do them at the same time.
So do you think maybe the middle of summer when things hopefully are a little
Oh, yeah. I think you want to, and
comfortable?
not just because of COVID, you know what I mean? Events. I
Yeah.
think also work that needs to be done here on
Right,
that
right.
to really solidify, what the are and down path.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's a great goal.
Excellent.
I don't know if here and tax credits, state historic tax credits, I feel like
Yeah.
right?
Beer,
Yeah, I
coffee.
think so.
Food.
Excellent. Okay, how we doing?
We
Get-
whipped right through this stuff.
I didn't think we would. Amazing.
Coffee and credits, coffee and tax
Coffee
credits.
and credits.
Credits.
There you go.
I'm just thinking with the city and beer, we can't really mix that, but
Sure. no, I
coffee
get it.
maybe might be safer.
Yeah, all right. We'll figure out a good slogan. Okay, building inventories, strategy, we've sort of talked about that.
Yeah.
I don't know anything else to add.
I think we-
I did mention I'll send over some examples, right? Okay.
Yes.
Blank.
Right.
That'd be great.
The blank.
Well, I think that really
OHI.
The
brings
template.
up the idea of, the the CLG grant opportunities, you have to figure out, if that's something you want to apply for, and if that perhaps would be for a building inventory project. Because you can hire people, as Chris is well aware, to do that, so maybe that's something to consider down the line as a goal.
To hire from our commission to do that?
No, and
You're
outside,
talking about.
right,
Okay.
Yeah, like a,
Consult, like a consultant.
right.
yeah, I mean, that's heritage resource people, that's, part of their life. They live and breathe that stuff.
Good. All right, any other business? We may end up, Bill has,
I did send an email out about just an introduction to the historic tax credit project, the
I saw that.
program.
Yeah, look good.
It's through AIA, so unfortunately, if you're not a member, it's a $10 fee, but I just thought it might be useful information.
great.
Particularly because the state is a little bit different. It's a competitive program, so it's just nice to, if you're all interested.
Appreciate that.
Yeah.
But let's do one thing, but I know Bill has some commentary, but let's make our next meeting first, just so we have that settled. What would be the normal date, Heather?
Let me look here. May 28th would be your fourth Friday.
How's that work for everyone?
I don't know. That's Memorial Day weekend. Does anyone have?
Yeah, actually, I probably will not be here. But certainly I can get somebody from staff to listen in.
Okay.
I'll probably.
Otherwise, are we good? Anybody going away? Not that we
Too
know
far
of.
ahead to.
Not yet, anyway. Okay, let's,
Should we be talking about the more general issue that Heather raised about long range, that there's possible conflict always, at least through the summer months, with these Friday afternoon times?
Or,
That's why I won't be here.
yeah,
Yeah.
I'm saying it's a tough one, yeah.
you want to propose another day? We have to coordinate it with whatever the city schedule
Right.
is for the space.
Thursday or something?
I mean, in the summer, it's not going to matter to me. But I'm not
We could
teaching.
post- not trying to. There's being is preferred.
I don't have a preference.
Okay. I'm pretty flexible, so.
How is
I
it
think
for-
we talked about evenings later on, as you need to have more public input
Public,
if it
yeah,
comes to
that's what I'm saying.
designation.
Oh,
At some point, that definitely will have to be a conversation, I think. That's up to you all, but whatever you need me to do, I just need to make sure you have this room and it's
I see.
open.
I mean,
Chris, what about you getting here during the
Yeah.
day?
I mean, end of day or beginning of day is just
Better?
easier because I'm
Yeah,
not
'cause
commuting
you're
back and
splitting up.
forth, throughout the day, but
Well,
I can make anything.
I get up at 4 in the morning. We could be
Yeah.
early.
6 a.m.
It's 6.
Another one of those people.
That's about when I go to bed.
How about 9 or 10 o'clock in the morning? I mean, that's
That'd be fine with me.
fine.
yeah, I mean, if we're gonna do morning, I think earlier.
Earlier
Like
than
9,
9,
like
or 9
9.
is good.
9 or,
8.
yeah, I know. I do have some board meetings start at 7 or 7:30, but 8 is fine. Either one is fine, but I agree with Chris. Either the beginning of the day or the end of the day.
Okay.
Yeah.
8:30, 9 o'clock? And what day? Can we still do it on a Friday, or should we look at other days?
Like I said, I just have to check this
Yeah.
room. I don't know.
Yeah?
I guess
What the
I
room
should mention,
availability is at
I
that time, and let
cannot
us know.
do Friday.
Yeah, you mean on the
evening
28th or?
mornings, but
Can I do Friday?
Friday mornings.
Friday
that's
morning's
when
bad for
My
you?
office has
Okay.
we
How
all have
about,
our stuff.
how about
get together.
Thursday morning?
Yeah. Any other day.
Thursday morning, 9 o'clock?
I normally am not here on Thursdays,
Oh.
Okay, how about
Okay.
Wednesday?
but
How about
it's just my
Wednesday?
life right now.
I think we need Heather here.
Yeah,
Uh,
we do.
Wednesday morning, 9 o'clock? On the 9th, would that be the 19th, or would that be the
26th.
26th? That's okay.
Yeah, 20.
That's my wedding anniversary. But
Well-
that doesn't matter, doesn't matter. The morning would be fine.
Have to celebrate at night. not in the
Yeah,
morning.
that's right.
We can remind you.
Okay, yes, yeah, I might need it. 26,
26 at 9?
9 o'clock AM. If,
And you'll
if,
just
the-
let us know if the room's not
if
available.
the room is available.
Okay.
HPC, okay. And we're all going to work on FAQs. I will draft something for the mayor. You're going to, well, not everybody has assignments, but I think we know what.
Try to approach the county about the
Right.
courthouse.
Okay, good. All right, lobby visitation, Bill Harold.
Bill Harold, 1030 Conneaut Avenue. Concerning whether to send something to council or not, don't ever hesitate because, we may be overworked. That's what we signed up for.
I thought you were going to say, don't ever.
Don't. The idea of kind of accumulating a few things and then sending it along, I think is a good idea. What would help us out is when you wish to make a change, if it is specific to the ordinance that was passed, that's one category. If it's something having to do with your procedures or anything that's apart from that, then that's another category, and you can do what you want to do with that. But if it's something to send to council to revise the ordinance, what would be really helpful is it's either going to be basically a change to wording or additional or deletion. And if you work from the document and say, okay, item 1 is this particular section, this particular subsection, current wording, requested revised wording, rationale, and then the next, and the next. And I think that would be really helpful and cut down on perhaps miscommunication and iterations back and forth. So,
Good.
And I appreciate all the work you did. Any revision to the existing document, I'll go out on a limb here and say that it's bound to be more straightforward than this first getting something in place. So because we have a foundation to work from. So
Great.
don't hesitate. Just the idea of accumulating them, especially as you get more information.
Yeah, and I'm sure there will be some down the road a little.
Oh, yeah,
further.
yeah. Just the discussion about the landscaping
Yeah.
is very helpful.
Mhm.
So anyway, thank you for keeping at it.
Okay, thank you. Anybody want to make a motion that we adjourn?
So moved.
Second?